Hey everybody, Eric J here for Mythical Studios, Vanguard at Mawa, and I wanted to do a quick video today talking about my first game of Mythicos Americas. So I put this together because I was going to be at the shop, and I did arrange for an opponent beforehand, Mr. Jason Torres, and his son Orion. And up to that point, I hadn't played the game at all, just read through the rulebook. So I'm going to show you my process of how I put things together just to make it a little easier as far as getting into the game, learning the game. I'm wearing my Peruvian jacket. This is handmade from Peru. My mom brought it back for me some years ago. So just to kind of get me in the mood. So we'll talk about that and do a little bit of a review of the game. So what I did was read through the rulebook, and if you can see here, you'll see there's a lot of tabs. There are more tabs on the side also, and basically those were just to make it easier for me or for anybody else who needs to look through the book to find what they're looking for quickly. So, this is all shooting mods, order dice turn sequence, stats, shooting, hand-to-hand weapon chart, ranged weapon charts, all that stuff you'd need to play handy. But I will tell you, at the front of the book, there's a great table of contents. So I got to tell you, it's really not hard to find anything in this book. That table of contents is really useful. But I just want to be able to flip to a page really quick without looking at anything else. So when I read through the rulebook initially, and being very honest with you, I actually texted a buddy of mine, fellow Vanguard Johnny Kleber, and said, wow, this is pretty complicated. There's a lot going on here. But when I got to the pages, steps for playing the game, everything came together as I was reading that. It really coalesced and you understood. And it made a lot of sense. And suddenly it wasn't a complex game anymore. You saw the reasons for all this and where all this goes. And, right after I read that, I texted back and I'm like, oh my God, I am excited to start playing this game. So what I went ahead and did was make things a little easier for a learning game. So in the box you get the two factions. You have the Aztecs and you have the tribal nations. These are Aztec monsters. These are Bound Marauders, and these are Sasquatch from the tribal nations. So I'll use them for a couple examples in just a second. So the steps for playing the game, of course, choose your faction. And I was going straight for Aztec Undead. And the Aztec faction has a lot of living models also, which are on their way out. So you're going to be able to do a lot with this faction, not just Undead, but the Undead are fun, and I've always loved them. And Tribal Nations is basically all alive, and they get Sasquatches. They had ranged attacks. We didn't have any ranged attacks, which becomes important for exchange of missiles, which is something we can talk about in a little while, or maybe not. You'll learn it on your own. So the first thing is choose your warband, which is what we did. And then there is choose the way. So the way is actually the way your warband is kind of going to work on the table, taking into account their basic rules and stats and such. So you can do that in several ways. You can just roll a d10, and whoever gets the higher or lower, whatever you want to figure out, they can pick one or the other. So this is ever-changing. That's just a card to denote that. And this is the ever-living. It doesn't matter what faction you're playing. You can choose to play either one of the ways, or roll for it, and whatever you get is what you have to deal with. So what's great about this is that you get 6 cards for each faction, and they're different, and they're blessings. So you get to play one of these cards per turn, and they give you buffs, advantages. There's magic in the game, so quite simply cancel one dispel attempt and re-roll it. Before taking an agility test for running, sprinting, or difficult terrain, automatically pass the agility test. So if you've got to make that all-important charge and you don't have something like Woodsman, which Tribal Nations has, so that they treat rough terrain as regular terrain, that's invaluable. So these make the game a lot of fun because I used several of them during our mission. one of my favorites was after any order dice is drawn, remove D3 pins from a single unit. I used that one, and that helped tremendously. We'll talk about that in just a bit. So that added a real amount of fun and depth to the game. So then you pick your balance of the way, which is basically your mission, your scenario. What I did was I pre-picked one for us so that it was a little simpler than some of the others. And nothing's overly complicated, but I didn't want to have to do a lot of moving things around and all. So we picked something called Liberators and Captives. So you have all the scenarios in the book, but they also are on these little cards. So Liberators and Captives, I made sure to make a copy of it so I'd have it out there so that we both can read it and it's out there in case we have questions. It's very simple. You pick 2 units from each side, and each of them is harboring a captive from the other player's team army. So there are your markers. You get markers in there that come with the box set, and one goes in the center as a captive that's called Uncontrolled. You get points at the end of the game for everything you control. What we did, because it was about a 500-point game, which meant I think we had 5 units each, was just go 1 unit on each side and then the one in the middle, and it worked great. Which is another great thing about games like this. You can do what you want with the game. You know, learn to play it the way it's meant to be played, play the scenarios, but then you can make up all kinds of scenarios, you know, and it lends itself to that, which I think is awesome. So place your terrain according to the scenario. You want to do your own terrain, place your terrain your own way. And then you get devotions of the way. What's cool about devotions of the way is basically devotions are secondary objectives that each player takes depending on what they're playing, ever living or ever changing. And so there are cards, and there's a way to do it. Take 3 out and choose one secretly, so your opponent doesn't actually know what your secondary objective is, which also I think is an awesome thing. And then there's magic. So where the magic's concerned, if you have high priests, shamans, magicians, according to their level, you get to pick magic. So what I did was take 2. I had mine as a level 3, but I picked 2 spells. I bought 2 spells, and one was to give +2 strength till an end of a round and +2 resistance till the end of the round. So depending on what I needed at the time, if I knew I was going to be charged and attacked, I'd give them higher resistance. If I was going for the charge that turn, I knew I was going to do that, I'd give a unit +2 strength. So that's kind of the immediate setup. Added to that, and again, if you're bringing somebody into the game and you're learning the game, this might be something you want to do. What I did was I literally just went on my computer and made up the army lists. So you have the army list for each army right there on a table. And again, it's hard to see from here, but you have the unit upgrades. They were given point cost any specials. And then on the back, I just typed up what the relevant special rules are for the game we were playing, for what was relevant to us. So you weren't looking at 3 pages of special rules until you're more familiar with the game. It's right there for you. So it's a quick and easy reference, which again makes it easier to play those first few games and to teach somebody. And finally, I literally just copied from the book so that we're not constantly opening the pages, and did Tribal Nations, just the units that were relevant to what we're using in that game for both ones, Tribal Nations and Aztecs. So again, easy, quick, and reference to keep for yourself, this copyrighted material. So there we go. The game was set up and we started playing. So if you're familiar with bolt action or a lot of the Warlord games, you're familiar with the order dice system. And basically, this is what that kind of looks like. So you have literally order dice. And on the order dice are different orders. And you'll have 2 colors generally, or always, because you need to know which color belongs to whom as you're pulling them out of the bag. So, if you have 5 units, you have 5 dice. If you have 3 units, you have 3 dice. If you have 10 units, you have 10 dice. 1 order die per unit. So they go into a bag, a box, whatever you want to use. Somehow, conveniently, I found my Crown Royal bag. I don't know what might have been in there, but clearly it was empty. And the dice go in. You can roll off of who pulls first, but generally, turn by turn, one person controls the dice bag. You roll, pull out a die, and up, it's away. So you have a unit of Sasquatches here. Can you see them? Well, not too much, so let's do that. And they're going to go do an order, so I want them to run. I want them to get somewhere really fast. I'm going to put this down and put it in as a run order. All right? It goes right next to them, and they can run, which is basically twice their speed. Or they can advance, which means they can move their normal speed and fire ranged attacks. Either one, advance or run, you can get into a charge, make contact. So one of the cool things about this game when we're talking about charges is that combat happens simultaneously, and I cannot tell you how much I love that system. So I'm an AOS guy, and I love AOS, but in AOS, you charge, and if there are several units charging, so if I'm the only guy who charged, I go first. So it's possible I'll take 5 guys out of somebody's unit, and now they're going to attack back at a lesser advantageous position because they have fewer guys now. If we're really looking at the concept of charges, once everybody's hitting in together, everybody's fighting. Everybody's swinging and flailing. So it's almost counterintuitive, although it's something we've all gotten used to with the games we played. Charge in, get your attacks, and the other guy attacks back. Mythic Americas takes a different approach to it, which I absolutely love, which is that it doesn't matter who charged, once you're in, everybody fights. And the other great thing about it is that if you have several guys in the unit, of course, they come together, this guy makes it into base to base, but these guys are a little bit behind him, even a couple inches, they still get to fight. Again, imagine it as the one guy makes it in there, the guys in the back aren't just going to sit there and go, all right, well, he's there, let him take care of it, we'll hang out back here. Everybody's going to get into the fray. So the only hard and fast rule there is one model has to make it into base to base, and then it's a Simo fight. So the charges do get a bonus. They get +1 on their strength, which is a significant bonus. After a round of combat, the winner, if there's a second round of combat, gets a bonus to their strength. So you can charge in. Doesn't mean you're going to win that combat. You will have the advantage. But the other thing that's fantastic about this system is the pin system. And again, if you're familiar with a lot of the Warlord system, you know about pins. So this game is based heavily on this pin structure. Basically, anytime you're hit by ranged attacks or take casualties or wounds in close combat, and there's other factors that can cause pins, you get a pin. So what's great is a ranged attack might have hit the Sasquatch as they were going in, and may not have taken any losses, but they get a pin. So they're going to have a single pin. Their command, I believe, is 8. But with the pin, their command goes down to a 7. So once I get into combat, let's say that first round goes, so right away, now I want to give them an order, and I want them to charge a unit. I have to take a test, which again is a significant part of the game. And rolled on your d10s, and I'm rolling that die, and I got a 4. So that was a lucky roll because their command went down to a 7. If I rolled an 8 or higher, they wouldn't be able to do anything but go down, which means it's just like confused and not really sure what's going on. So once they get into combat, if they take further hits, whether they lose casualties or not, doesn't matter. They take pins, okay? So you can go into a combat and end up being, let's say, 3 pins on you. So now your command is down from that 8 to a 5. And this happens for a lot of reasons in the game. There's ranged attacks, close combat, other factors that might do it to you. So as the game goes on and you're taking these pins, it gets harder and harder to do things with this unit. It's great. There are ways to get rid of some of these pins. I showed you that. You can always rally, which will help get rid of pins from that unit and sometimes units around you. You can end up rolling for an order failing, you can get rid of one pin, but then you're still stuck there down because you failed the order, can't do anything. So it's a very cool system. Even how the end of combat works. So it's not based on how many people are taken out or casualties. It has to do with how many pins you receive. So if you have 4 pins and you're a command 8, you're now down to a 4. You've got to take a break test on that 4. So again, chances are you're not going to make it and you're going to rout or be utterly destroyed if you have too many pins if it's over your current command. But both sides have to do it. So it's very possible that a winner may end up breaking also. The other cool thing about that is that when that first round of combat ends, the winner can decide that he wants to keep going. So you break off, or you just keep going with combat. In fact, if you and your buddy decide together, yeah, let's keep going, you can keep going. We did that once or twice during our game because it was just fun. We were beating each other up, and it was a lot of fun. The captive scenario was a lot of fun because we were able to move around with those captive tokens and try to keep them away from each other. The game is simplistic almost in its rules once you understand them. Most everything runs at a 5. You can double your distance with a run. There are certain units that'll have sprint that allows you to go faster. So there's a lot of different things going on. Wound system is also kind of, at this point, I guess they get a bit more expansive. Very simple. Everything's got a wound. Champions and some types of troops have tough, which means you get to reroll your saves, but it's quick and it's savage. There's no joking around here. You know, you big Sasquatch guys go down easy, but they hit like absolute Mack trucks. And then you have specials like these. You can up these to Macuahitls, which do 2 SV, which basically is rending, a term that some of us might know more. So it's basically taking down your resistance, which is your save, down. So SV2 takes it down by 2, SV1 by 1, things like that. So that adds a little more flavor to the game. So that's how I went out and approached the game. The game moved smoothly. I'll tell you, the first round or two, there were things we did forget. First round, we absolutely forgot about pins, and second term, pretty much till near the end, we forgot about pins and what they do for order tests. But then when we realized we forgot, we started using them, and it really changes the dynamic of the game. So I will say that we enjoyed the game so much that immediately after the game, my nephew went and actually bought a starter set because he was super excited about it. One of the things he loved about it was the history that's involved. Really excited about the history and the history that's in the book and the history of the characters and these types of armies. So, anytime you get, there are demo dates up. There's going to be an official demo at Randolph and at Mythicos Mawa. I will usually have the army with me in the times I go there going forward. We do Warcry Fridays every other Friday, and AOS campaign is coming up. We're going to have some events for that. But Mythic Americas is also going to be something I'm concentrating on. So my season is probably going to be set up very well. It is really a fantastic game. I really urge you to, if you're not running out to buy it immediately, go get a learning game in. Just get a demo in. Demos are quick and easy. You don't have to do it with a lot of models. Do it with 3-4 units. Doesn't matter. And just get the feel of it. I fell in love with it just reading the book, but when I played that first learning game, I really saw the rich universe the game is in, and loved the way the game worked. It was really great. We had a lot of fun. I'm the old man. My nephew is, much younger than me, and then his son was there, who's, a teenager. And all three of us just had a blast with the game, so it's great for everybody. So check it out. Eric J. here, Vanguard for Mythicos Mawa, and we'll see you on the other side of the table.